Welcome to a new daily top Askreddit video. Today's topic: men who have sold/donated sperm and gave permission for the child to contact you at 18. What is your story? My younger bro donated multiple times unbeknownst to me. Years later my wife and I did Ancestry.com to get an idea of how diverse our backgrounds were, and wham! Started getting contacted by lots of people, over a dozen, saying we were close relatives. At first I was confused and asked the early ones about their parentage. They all had a similar stories. Single mom went to a sperm bank. Didn't take long to guess what happened. Call my brothers and asked. Younger one fessed up and said yes, he went multiple times. In fact they told him he had to stop donating because there was a statistical probability his progeny could meet and date. At least they seemed ethical. I asked if it was okay if I gave them his contact. He was fine with it. The weird thing is that they all had his face, like one look at them and it was obvious who their father was. Anyway, this went on for a couple of years and they all connected with each other. Seems there is over 20 now, probably more. He has met a couple of them but it was all casual. The whole thing is super weird to the rest of family to have all these close relatives who somehow are part of the family but then again not really. I want to be a fly on the wall at this person's Thanksgiving. It'd be like a creepy version of that British This Is Your Life show where the soldier saved all the children in World War II, then when they asked if there were any of those children in the audience, they all stood up. Edit, This Life. I know it wasn't This Is Your Life specifically, hence why I said like. Edit, thanks for the upvotes. I'm glad it was 10x those for my comment about https://www.reddit.com/r/prequel memes/comments/mq1g8q clone_wars_a_summary/gudop1e/utm_source equals share and utm_medium equals ios_app and utm_name equals iasmf and context equals 3. I love how he donated so much that they had to tell him to stop. Edit. Got rid of the edits cause they're cringe. I mean, getting paid for fapping, why not? A guy I know in his 70s got a call from a guy in his 50s saying, "Hey, I'm your son, oh and I just learned I have a genetic disease so your other kids should probably get tested." Credit to the guy in his 50s if that's the reason he called, just to warn his bio dad's family. Class move. I experienced something similar. I was adopted as a baby and had no contact with my bio family, beyond my mom visiting a couple times when I was too young to remember. Out of the blue when I was around 13, we got a letter from her sister, explaining that my grandma had just died of diabetes and that I should be aware it ran in the family. My own mom couldn't be bothered to warn me, but her sister that she hasn't spoken to in decades stepped up and did it. My aunt and I exchanged letters and ended up meeting when I was about 22. Still haven't contacted my mom. Edit cause spelling is hard. I donated for 6 months in university. Twice a week. I gave consent to be contacted. That was close to 20 years ago now. I did call and ask once. My sperm resulted in 24 successful pregnancies. That was all the office could tell me. I have not done 23 AdMe or anything like that. Edit, added a missing word. Sitcom title, 24 AdMe. 27 AdMe. Had 3 of my own. I find it ironic that donating sperm is usually something people do only when they need money. However, by past society and nature standards, the simple fact of having 24 kids makes you a wildly successful male specimen. They are pretty picky about who they'll let donate. Height requirements, education requirements, medical requirements, no criminal record, etc. Then the recipients get to choose the donor based on their profile. Unsurprisingly, the most prolific sperm donors are like 6'2" white Harvard students. I can fulfill my genetic purpose and get paid. Some species quite literally die just to do so. I was a donor, and when this happened to me, it was okay. 4 separate offspring at various times over the course of about 6 months contacted me, all just as they turned 18 and records were open to them. It was cool for me to see pictures of them and how much they looked like me. It was also good to hear the stories from their parents of how I helped them conceive a much-needed child, which I really appreciated. But that was all. A few nice, polite emails were exchanged, some kindnesses, and then we stopped emailing. I didn't want or expect more. I'm just glad to know they existed, and that they got to connect with their biological heritage. I supposedly, as far as the donor system estimates, have a lot more out there, but I expect these are the only ones that will contact me, since I assume most of them will want to do it as soon as they can, and all of my donations happened within an 18-month span. A few emails probably meant a lot to them. Showed that you cared but ultimately recognized that you weren't their dad. I emailed my donor at 18, sent a little biography and some pictures, and said I understood he was my dad, and he responded with a yeah, never contact me again. I have it told my wife and kids and attached the worst, most faraway picture of himself he could. There are at least 18 of us kids, most of us know each other, and the ones of us who were interested in reaching out, maybe 5 or 6 of us, were super disappointed he was so rude. So from a donor kid, thanks for being kind. From his point of view, he donated at a time when he very likely needed extra cash, never told his family and then forgot about it. 18 years later he started getting emails that could potentially ruin his relationship with his wife. I understand where he is coming from, but it's never good to be rude to people. Don't take it personally. For a long time sperm donation was sold to the donors as totally anonymous / no one will ever come back to you, and then that all changed over the last couple decades. Many people who did it when I was younger did so with the understanding that they would never be known to their potential offspring, and it must be a little jarring to have it happen now. DNA testing makes the permission difficult to enforce. My friend's dad donated in the 80s and some of his offspring recently reached out to him after DNA testing. I'm adopted and my closest match on Ancestry tried to extort me for $5,000 to give me information about my biological siblings. I refused and still can't find them. https://img.com/fc3ffrx.png. Edit. Since I got a lot of messages and stuff about this, I uploaded a screenshot of her comments. To add some additional context, my birth mother doesn't want to meet, so I have been attempting to gather information about my siblings who were also adopted in a closed adoption. Rather than share any information she had about my siblings, she offered to give me my mother's information for $5,000 against my mother's wishes as well, and then called me a dumbass when I refused. Edit 2. I reached out through the adoption agency when I was 18 to attempt to contact my mother, and she communicated at the time that she did not want to contact me. I know that this person is actually related to me and my mother because of DNA testing and because of information that my cousin would only know if she were in contact with my mother. Wow, fuck that person. I wonder what it's like to have a black pit instead of a soul. I was donor conceived. I took a DNA test, his natural-born daughter took a DNA test. So really neither of us gave permission. There are 28 siblings so far. It was quite a shock. I wasn't expecting it and didn't know. I was 38. I've met the donor and most of the half-siblings. He's a cool guy. I think it is eerie how I see many of my mannerisms in him and the other siblings. I know there is a wide range of emotions for people who experience this sort of thing, but for me it was generally positive. My stepmom was an early donation conceived baby. She's done 23andMe and Ancestry. Last I heard she was up to 23. Half-siblings. Their donor father died in the late 1980s and seems to have been a good man. So since there's 23 other siblings, she can say there's 23andMe, right? It is incredible how the similarities are passed down. My father-in-law had a daughter that was the result of a one-night stand and was adopted by a wonderful family. The adoption agency had a registration of birth parents and kids, who could each, blind to the other, give permission to be contacted, and only if both parties did, they'd put them in contact. So this happens in her early 20s, and they make arrangements for her to fly to meet her birth family, including my wife and her brother, her half-siblings. My wife goes to pick her up at the airport since the parents live out of town. There were no arrangements, no pictures, nothing. This was pre-Facebook. My wife saw her come out the doors, knew without question it was her, and she knew the same. They had a huge tearful hug without even any words. They just knew, by looks, by mannerisms, whatever. The incredible thing is, I've shown pictures of the half-sister, with or without her birth father and half-sister, and everyone agrees she doesn't actually look much like them. But there's something about the looks and how they act that is so similar between all of them, it really is incredible. Edit one more detail. We found out years later that the father and daughter contacted the agency to open themselves up to contact within 24 hours of each other. A complete coincidence. The agency actually didn't do it for a couple weeks because they were trying to contact the daughter's adoptive parents, who had passed away, hence the delay, because they just assumed there had been contact since they were in touch so impossibly close together. I definitely think there's a huge nature component in people's mannerisms. My partner has never met his bio dad, but his mom also says it's uncanny how much he acts like him sometimes. But on the flip side, nurture seems to play a pretty big role too, because I see a lot of his stepdad, who adopted him when he was 8, in him as well, just in the way that he acts, his sense of humor and all that.